Today we saw one of the fastest races in the history of distance running, as the world's best took to the roads of Valencia, Spain, to compete in one of the quickest and deepest half marathon fields ever assembled. And my goodness, we saw some absolute fires on the roads of Valencia, with quite possibly the greatest overall finish in half history. Now, for the previous few seasons, this city has been the site of many great performances, with one of the previous world records going down on the very streets of Valencia in the half marathon. And then last year, we saw yet another world record on the women's side, as Letesenbet Gide from Ethiopia set a crazy fast mark of 62 minutes and 52 seconds, which actually took down the previous mark by over 1 minute. And once again, Valencia showcased that it just might be the fastest city in the world on this day, because up front, the pace was blistering through the opening stages. For this half marathon, we had a very talented field assembled, as Kibiwat Kandi, Agos Gebrewit, Yomif Kajelcha, and also Selaman Barega were present on this day. Plus, we had the most recent world champion for the half marathon on the roads, as Sebastian Sawe was also looking to perform well. Over the first few kilometers, it became apparent that we were in for a very quick finish, as the first 3K was reached in 8 minutes and 13 seconds, which was a blistering tempo up front of 2 minutes 44.33 seconds per kilometer, or 4 minutes 24.47 seconds per mile. Now, despite this relentless tempo up front at this point, this was actually just outside of world record pace, as Kiplimo's current world record of 57 minutes and 31 seconds represents an overall pace of 2 minutes 43.57 seconds per kilometer. However, after this opening 3K, we saw a pretty crazy surge, as none other than Kibiwat Kandi made a frantic push from 4 up to 5 kilometers, covering this single kilometer in 2 minutes and 39 seconds. This is a very, very rare split to see in the middle of a half marathon, as a 2:39K split actually represents an overall half marathon finish of 56 minutes flat. And while this was a relentless pace and a pretty amazing thing to witness, he inevitably did slow down after a few minutes of this running. This blazing kilometer surge put Kandi, Kajelcha, and Agos Gebrewit at 13 minutes and 43 seconds through the opening 5 kilometers. But as you can clearly see, the chase pack was still quite close, only falling around 3 or 4 seconds behind this very fast front trio. After the opening 5K was passed, Kandi remained very strong up front, and right around the 20-minute mark, none other than Selaman Barega, the Olympic 10,000-meter champion from the Tokyo Olympics, joined the front runners, making this front pack even more likely to attack the world record. Through 10 kilometers, Kibiwat Kandi was still pushing up front, and he crossed through in 27 minutes and 15 seconds, which represented a previous 5 kilometers of 13 minutes and 32 seconds. And at this point in the race, the front 4 were actually slated to break the current world record, as their predicted finish at this point was 57 minutes and 29 seconds, which would be 2 full seconds faster than Jacob Kiplimo. Now, after passing through the opening 30-minute mark, Selaman Barega jumped to the lead for the very first time, and just look at how smooth he was running here. Honestly, every single one of these front 4 were still looking very strong and very smooth, and their lead at this point over the chase pack was pretty massive, with hardly anyone even within camera shot in the back. After passing through this 10K split, Barega threw in 2 more very quick kilometer splits, running intervals of 2:42, followed by yet another 2:42, and at this point their predicted finish was actually around 57:19, which was pretty ridiculous because I don't think many people thought that the world record realistically would fall. However, at this point, it seemed as though it was going to happen. But then, at the 13-kilometer mark, they saw their first real slowdown, with a 13th kilometer split of 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Through the 15-kilometer split, the lead pack had a time of 41 minutes and 1 second, which now placed them just outside of the world record. Now, this pace is actually one of the fastest 15-kilometer splits of all time, and it's actually even faster than Joshua Cheptegei's previous world record in this distance that he set back in 2018, where he ran a time of 41 minutes and 5 seconds. But it is important to mention that Jacob Kiplimo still holds the fastest 15-kilometer split and the fastest outright 15K time in history at 40 minutes and 27 seconds. So at this point, they were still a little ways behind Kiplimo, but they still had a shot to break the world record. Now passing through 18 kilometers, they were still quite close to the world record pace, now falling only 8 seconds behind. And with all 4 of these athletes still up front, running quite strong, a new all-time mark still was realistic. But who would ultimately come out on top of this very competitive race, and would they be able to break the world record? Just after passing the 51-minute mark of this race, Candy was making a bit of a push and was actually strong enough to drop Salomon Barega, which I didn't think would happen because Barega was looking so strong at this point. This was quite the significant break, and then just a few minutes later, around 55 minutes, it was still Kejelcha Gebrewet and Candy up front. And at this point, I think that Kejelcha simply has to be the favorite. He's got amazing personal records across the board, he's still the indoor mile world record holder at 3:47, so he clearly has the speed. And he also rivaled Jakob Ingebrigtsen all the way to the line at this year's Prefontaine Classic, both achieving times of 7 minutes and 23 seconds. So with so many different tools in his running resume, he was absolutely the man to watch at this point. Now with just a few moments left in this race, it was still a rather tactical affair up front, with these 3 waiting for their moment to strike. And then it happened, and it happened in a big way, as Kibiwott Candy made a huge surge to the front of the pack with just under 400 meters left to run. This was a very decisive move and was actually a lot faster than I thought that he was capable of running, and Agus Gebrewet actually fell to the back from this push, with Kejelcha still within striking distance. However, with absolutely unmatched finishing speed, Kibiwott Candy broke the tape in 57 minutes and 40 seconds, just outside of the world record, and this time is the 4th fastest performance in half marathon history. And it's also important to mention that his final 400 meters was completed in a ridiculous pace of 57 seconds, showcasing pretty amazing speed over his Ethiopian rivals. Finishing in second was Yomif Kejelcha in 57:41, and finishing right behind was Agus Gebrewet also in 57:41. Following these top 3, finishing in 4th place was none other than Salomon Barega in 57 minutes and 50 seconds, which is pretty remarkable because this was a new personal record in the half marathon for Barega by almost 3 entire minutes, one of the biggest jumps I've ever seen in the half marathon. Now these top 4 were certainly the stars of this race, as this marks only the 2nd time in history that 4 athletes have broken 58 in a single half marathon. However, behind these front 4 was an incredible amount of depth, as this race saw a total of 15 athletes running under 1 hour for the half marathon, which makes this one of the deepest races in half history, and this actually might make this race the single fastest half marathon of all time. If we go back to the 2020 Valencia Marathon, we actually saw 4 athletes running under 58 minutes for the very first time. However, behind these front 4, we only saw a total of 8 athletes breaking 1 hour, which means this year's Valencia Half Marathon was clearly one of the fastest half marathons and one of the fastest road races in the history of athletics. Extra history was also made from Spain's Carlos Mayo, who improved on the previous national record of Spain with a time of 59 minutes and 39 seconds to place 13th. And we also saw yet another national record from Samuel Barata, who broke Portugal's national record in this race with a time of 59 minutes and 40 seconds, and that national record had stood for 26 full years. This year's Valencia Half Marathon was absolutely incredible, and after this lightning finish, Candy also made a very interesting statement upon reaching his post-race interview, stating that "I promise to return to Valencia and regain the world record anyway. I'll now focus on my build-up for the Valencia Marathon on December 3rd, so make sure to stay tuned for that race as well, as Candy will be battling against Joshua Cheptegei for his marathon debut." Thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, until next time.